to live stream the meeting through YouTube. It should say that there's a third party that is also being used with Zoom. The third party is YouTube. And we give our participation. And sometimes I have issues with that. So I try again with that link to see if it works. I'm having some issues, so we may forget it this time. It's interesting. We'll see this content. Sometimes it takes more time. Okay, so we got that on YouTube. What's our next thing? I'm going to try to do Loom. And Loom has an educational version and they have another free version. You may want to try that out as yours. Their standard allows only for limited recording for a certain number of time slot. That may be good enough. I'm going to start the recording. I could use my camera, but I'll use my camera for Zoom. I have a second camera here, but I don't need a second camera. Okay, and Justin and Whitney and Adam, hopefully you can get your cameras working as well. Any questions before I begin? So now what we're going to do, we talked about hardware last time, right? And Alex Creighton, we talked about primary memory and secondary memory, and we had to know what was the difference and who cares. So Alex Creighton, you remember what is primary memory? And what is it used for?
It's like your RAM. It's used
It's
to
your
like
RAM, your random. And how much do you have in your machine?
I have 32 gigabytes.
32 gigabytes, right? And then if you wanted, possibly we could do 64. And if we needed 128, we could go to other places, or we could go to the cloud, right? We could get those, right? And did you check what is your secondary? How much secondary storage do you have on that machine?
I have a terabyte.
Great. So at least all of our work, it should be good enough, right, Alex? And your major, Alex?
Finance major.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to talk about a lot of data in the next couple of weeks. And the whole idea is we're going to do, they call it a lot of times fintech or financial technology. And basically AI comes to being, and we want to use forecasting. Of course, what we need then, Alex, is what? More RAM? Probably, and we'll need some space. It's good that you have it on the hard drive. And then later on, of course, you can store it to the cloud and get on different cloud devices. And they give you, for the University of Miami, do they give you cloud provision? Alex, do you know?
Yes. I don't know.
How much? Do you know how much?
No, I just use iCloud.
Yeah, iCloud. It'd be good for next time. Can you do me a favor, Alex? Go find out how much does a student, how many, what's our space limitation? Maybe we can use it. Are they giving us unlimited, or what is our limit there for our cloud so we can use it as well? So maybe in that case, Alex, you can separate what you do for your homework for our things and you don't get it interfered. So remind me next time we meet, Alex, that you'll let us know what is the capabilities. What are they giving? It'd be interesting to see. Do they give undergraduate students different than they do faculty? Do I get more than you, or do you get more than me? You know, you pay for it, right? So maybe they're giving you more than they give to me. Maybe I'll borrow some of yours.
It says we get unlimited. It says we get unlimited. It says UM's collaboration and cloud storage gives you unlimited space to secure your data online.
Wow, nice to know, huh? So really good. So you're, because for instance, Google, has anybody ever used like Google? Google limits you, so that's great to know. The only thing is, it's interesting. After you graduate, what year are you, Alex?
I'm a sophomore.
Sophomore. So after you get a senior, will you continue having it as an alum? Do you get? That'd be interesting to see. You know, and as an alum, I doubt it, right? Because you're no longer part of the community. Do you get your email still appropriated? So that'd be good to know. That's fantastic, right? So all our types of work I'd say save it to, and they're using Microsoft. Is that correct, Alex? What does it say?
Says Adobe Creative Cloud and
Adobe Creative Cloud, that's where we store?
that's
You know?
no, I don't know. It
No, that's
doesn't, it says box. I don't know. It says box. UM's collaboration spaces. Box, OneDrive, Teams, Groups, and SharePoint.
okay. So
Yeah, it says
yours,
box is the main one.
okay. And we have unlimited in box? And what about when we get Microsoft Office 365? Maybe you know what we'll do? We'll invite IT over. Good idea. We'll invite IT over.
Maybe.
Uh-huh. I'll ask
Maybe.
I'll ask them to come over and tell us how much do we have and where do we have the spaces, because box is different than others. Okay, great. All right, so let's move on. Thank you, Alex. So let me share my screen. So if I see here my screen.
Professor, I'm seeing 5 terabytes on OneDrive
On OneDrive. That's pretty good
as the limit.
as the limit on OneDrive. And do they say that you get box too?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah. Because at one time they were with box and they said we weren't going to be using box. We should use Google. But this is using it with Microsoft?
Yeah, Microsoft.
Daniel, okay. That's great. And we don't get Google, right?
It's a very low limit, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
we
it's the same as the free account.
Okay. But yeah, so that's good enough for our work.
Yeah.
And then you can keep it separate, for your work that you do for the university. We're not going to use more than that. That's good to know. The only problem is when you leave the university, Daniel, what is it? They're probably going to cut off your account and you have to, that's a disadvantage. So if you want to keep some things, but things that you know that you're not going to want to keep, it may be worth it. Things that you're just doing for assignments may be worth it. Okay, so let's look at what's due and make sure that we have the what's due. Today we were supposed to do the software that was supposed to be done widely, and also the regular quizzes. On Monday, the 12th, what I'd like you to do is, I talked about it before, was the screencasting exercise, doing it individually, as well as getting together afterwards as a group and sharing each other's insights of each of those. And then what I'd like to do, we'll see if we have time today. Otherwise, this link right here is what we call a virtual lab. We're going to be using this as a virtual lab. So what I want you to do is later on try using this and put in your credentials and see if you get another machine in the cloud that we can use. So we're seeing this. And Daniel, I made the next week open. We'll talk about it next week, but if you wanted to gain access, you could. Okay, Daniel?
Yeah.
All right. So let's do this. One more thing is, let me just review this. I'm going to log in. I have here all my courses. And I'm going to look for H, but I'm going to look for the audit area. I'm going to go to groups. And in the groups, what number are you, Daniel? What's your group number?
We're group 8.
Group 8. So I'm just going to go at this point to group 8. And everybody should have then a screencasting folder. So you make sure that you have that now. Let me go to Dylan. You had your Zoom, and you have now a screencasting folder. In your screencasting folder, each person, again, what I said before, picks another screencasting, screen recording program other than Zoom. Each should be different than the other in your group. When you're doing that, if attending your group session, you should then state who's everybody in your group, what they used. I suggest everybody have that already so that they can go off and do it. And then you come back as a group only after, hopefully everyone has done this. And then if I go into screencasting folder, for instance, we have Daniel. These are individual assignments. You put the date, your name, that it's individual, the file that you use. Make sure that you're speaking in your video. You want to do it under 5 minutes for sure. You want to talk about how do you use that program, what are the pros and the cons. You also want to discuss the operating system, which operating systems it works on. What is the file format? In this case, he's saying MOV. The storage, where does it store? Does it store to the cloud? Does it give you a chance to store to your computer? What's the cost, the free version, the paid version? And then a short description of what were the pros, what were the cons. Not lengthy sentences. We're not looking for paragraphs, just short and sweet. And what challenges, difficulties you had. Each person in the recording then, in the group recording, the time that it was done, the date and time, the link, of course, which is non-password, who was in your group recording, who appeared, and what were the difficulties you had. And each person have that. Questions? Alex Wasserman, are there any questions, or you do have a question about this group assignment? Pretty straightforward, right? So this one's it's a pretty interesting in the way that it's pretty straightforward. Okay, that's due on Monday. If I look at what else I had is if I go to my PowerPoint and documents, I can go to my PowerPoint, my 9th edition, and I can go to TG for Tech Guide and open up my PowerPoint of my Tech Guide of software. And I also can go to Wiley Plus, go to my chapter 2. And in my Wiley Plus of my chapter 2, if I click on any of these, it should take me to the book. So I can see the book here of what's important. What do I need to emphasize in the book? It starts talking about software defects, the idea of software licensing, the idea of open systems. Open systems is computing products that work together in something called open source software. So all programs are written in what we call source code. And some software is what we call proprietary software. And that means proprietary software is there restrictions, and many times users cannot see the source code. The reason they do that is to protect their software. The reason some companies do that is to keep integrity. And the reason is that they want to charge for it. open source software is many times the idea of open, it's no cost to developers and users. Many times for the source, for end users, it wouldn't make any difference if they saw the source anyways, because they don't understand it. But for developers, it's advantageous to improve the program and also to use what we called API application program interfaces that we can even have links like we did from Zoom to YouTube, YouTube to other programs. Now, we also have it in terms of PowerPoints. And if I look at the PowerPoint, what you need to be able in this chapter to distinguish between, Zachary, is a difference between system software versus application software, just like from primary storage to secondary storage, system software versus applications software. And when I look at any of that system software, I basically see it as in the center here. The system software, they say it's like an intermediary. It resides between my application software and my hardware. So when I buy a hardware, when I buy a laptop or I buy my phone, in this case, what happened? Where is my system software? When you buy, what phone do you have?
I have an iPhone 14.
iPhone 14. Do you have to download the system? What operating system does it work on?
Is that like iOS or?
iOS, right? And what version? So one of the things is if we look at it, right? If I think about system software, another term is what? A lot of times people say the operating system. So any type of device that I have, whether I'm using an IoT device or whether I'm using a mobile device, whether I'm using my laptop, whether I'm using a cluster of machines, I'm always having an operating system, and that operating system differs. So on your iPhone, it's iOS, right? So I have iOS here, and OS stands for what do you think, Ike?
Operating system.
Wow, aren't we great? Okay, it stands for operating system. That's part. So basically, what does that do? When I'm running any apps, then it will then control between my hardware and the intermediary between my hardware and my apps. And what other, and in a mobile device, what other mobile device? In this case, Daniel, what other operating system is common in other mobile devices?
Android.
Android. Right. So those are kind of, when I think about it, those are kind of for my mobile devices. Right. And then for my laptops or my hard drives, what is you have in this case? If we think about it, Zachary, what laptop do you have? Are you using a laptop now?
Yeah,
For this class? What are you using?
MacBook.
Okay, so he's using it for the MacBook. So if I thought about the MacBook, what operating system does it have?
It's Mac OS.
Mac OS, he says. So he says Mac OS. And the idea here is, how do you know? So one of the things that you need to figure out for the next time is, what OS do you have on your laptop? I'm just assuming everybody has laptop, or if it's a desktop. And what version? And then what else? What other operating system? In this case, if I looked at it, what other operating system, Gus, would be available that other people have on laptops or in the library or other places, computers? What do you think, Gus?
Besides Mac OS?
Yeah, besides Mac OS.
Windows.
Windows. So basically, if I have others, I can think about it. It has Windows, it has different versions, right? A lot of times they say for PCs. And what other ones, Daniel? Operating system,
Linux.
Linux. And and where would that reside? In what kind of applications?
You could use it on any computer.
Right. So it can be addition,
Actually, you could put Linux or Windows on Mac as well.
right? Addition to any. And why? Why would you want Linux? Why would anyone want Linux? Because most people,
Well-
if you think about business people, they're either saying, mostly if they have Macs, they're just using their Mac OS, or if they do have their PCs, they're using Windows. What is the advantage for Linux?
Well, with Windows, Microsoft collects a lot of data that they don't tell you they collect.
Mhm.
And Linux, since it's open source and there's a lot of different branches, you can kind of decide how much data you feel like giving.
Okay, so
Also like Linux, I would argue is easier to use if you know how to use a terminal.
yeah, it depends. But for you, it's easy. For other people, it isn't. But basically, the key here is Linux. A lot of times, Linux is used for scientific purposes, large data sets. A lot of times, people are using Linux. They're using it a lot. If I look at, around campus, for instance, marine science, they're basically standardized, Daniel, on Linux because they have, oceanography, and they're looking at waves and thinking about large data sets. They're using it. The key here in this is open source, meaning that one, basically in this case, one can read the code. Sometimes it's useful for most people, for most business majors, it isn't useful because they don't know what to do with the code, but it may be useful that if I have a project that it could be modifiable and others could change it. And then the idea for Windows, in this case, then we have to figure out is Windows open source or proprietary? So what do you think in this case, Lisha? Linux is probably the only open source, so Windows is what we call proprietary. And what do you think about Mac OS? Is it proprietary or open source? Take a guess, Lisha.
Would it be proprietary?
Exactly. It's proprietary, and then we always ask that question, who cares? Basically, what's important here is Apple and Microsoft want to make money. And they basically charge for their operating systems, and they make it. Though, as time is going, Microsoft and Apple are saying maybe we're having to go more and more toward the open source environment. We'll talk about that. And in this case, Daniel, what about iOS and Android for mobile devices? That
Android
open
is open source, but most phones have Android. That's the Google version that is not open source.
Right.
But you can get the Android or
Right.
even a fork of it that's much more secure, and iOS is clearly proprietary.
Yeah, so iOS, we definitely know it's proprietary. If we have Android from the manufacturer, from your phone, we'll just say is usually proprietary or closed. But some versions.
Well, like Google bases their version of Android on the open sourced version because iOS was so far ahead, they needed people to develop, not just them. Yeah.
Exactly. We got to say, hey, we got to catch up, right?
Yeah.
And so let's go. And that open source means the community can make, it's almost like a community type of sourcing on that. So that's what we need to know in terms of open source versus hardware. And then based on that, this is going to be key then to what you need to know for that open source. And then when they're selling software, there's licensing that occurs. So a lot of times when I'm asking you, for instance, as being part of the university community, they are buying licensing agreements, just like Zoom. They're buying the academic enterprise version of Zoom. So we're able to have unlimited amount of time that we can have more than one person. We can do, as we said before, we even have access to do live streaming to Facebook, to Twitch, to YouTube. They have now something called IQ Companion in Zoom, but I still haven't gotten the university to turn that on. I may kind of also invite them to give them a chance to turn that on. So that is when I go back here, that's the operating system. So who cares about the operating system? We're not able to save my files, to go ahead and print something, to upload, to download as part of my system software to work with my hardware and my applications that I have. You know it, and it's almost like it runs so smoothly that you're not even aware of it. And then I have something called, in that case of system software, is I could have a graphical interface a lot of times. And basically you can think about that operating system is like the director of all the computer's operations. Application software, we use, and a lot of times in application software for our phones, we were always used to saying what? The apps, right? I go to my app store, I go and download an app, I can buy different apps, different application software. We're all familiar with that, from the personal application software to speech recognition, to voice recognition, to things that are all my intelligent bots, my voice to text, my Siri, all of that, all my AI additions here are part of my apps. So that is the key. Any questions? So it's pretty straightforward, this chapter. It's not a big deal. Okay. Any questions, comments? And then I see here Sivan and Whitney and Tatiana and others with their screens. So if that's the area to do, our next point, which we'll be doing, is looking at data. When I look at data is in abundance. And what I'm going to be looking at in this case is I want to give an example for using data and analyzing it. So I thought, since we're in business, a lot of us are in finance, where can we get data from in large quantities? And the way that I looked at it is we probably could get data via, when we think about trading, like if we think about the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, is data available to us? And the answer is yes. The question is, do we want basically data that is real time? And basically the data goes by tick, right? As we blink our eyes, there's a number of, basically the points change all the time. Or we can look at data based on time. So our time could be then end of day, minute, 5 minutes. I could get my data. And what I want to use for our examples in this class is looking at ways in which we can do algorithmic trading. And then we have to figure out what is an algorithm. And an algorithm basically is a series of tasks. You know an algorithm all the time, right? That if I follow a recipe, I have steps to a recipe, right? Every time I have steps to a recipe, those steps is considered to be an algorithm. And what algo trading sometimes is programmers set this up. So they set up certain rules and conditions where the computer will buy or sell or do nothing via trade. And over 90% of all trades in the market are done by computers. And what the new role of artificial intelligence is the programs then of artificial intelligence will start doing some of the trading or giving advice. And when it, now there's something now, everybody has heard of coding, right? Who's done any coding? Raise your hand if you've done any coding whatsoever. So Daniel, is Daniel the only one? So Connor, have you ever done any programming? Connor's having such a good time with others over there. Connor, do you hear me? That's a good point, huh? That we're recording when I'm speaking to Connor and he doesn't hear. So in this case, Alec Creighton, have you ever had any programming?
One time when I was like, I think like 9 or 10, I tried to.
They tried it on you. And now they have in AI, they have a way in which the artificial intelligent agent writes the code. You give it instruction, Alex, of what are the conditions, and the computer then, the software then writes the code. So what I want to do, and we'll see the tendency here as even those that are programmers, it makes their life easier. And those that don't know coding or know a little bit of coding can basically, it's almost like speaking to a computer and giving it instructions what to do. So in order for me to do any of that, we're going to be using a program. I'll start off with a program, and that program is called Ninja Trader. I use that program as an example. The reason I like it is that it's easy. It's relatively easy. And why else I like it? It has a simulation module. And the cost, what do you think the cost is, Autumn? Knowing me. It's free. So I have it in terms here, I have it free that we can use for this. If we wanted to trade, which we're not going to, we're only doing simulation, then they would charge. It turned out now Ninja Trader is not only the broker, not only the program, but it's also a broker. So let me just do this for a second. Let me share my screen. Okay, don't save this. And if I share my screen, if I go to ninjatrader.com, I don't want to open up an account, but if I go to platforms here, you can see here I have a platform. It works in a mobile device, it works for charting, works for overview. I have what I call a simulation mode. And the simulation mode is that they have a free simulator that we can practice on, and we can look at what does it mean to have an algorithm, what happens there when we continue. So in this simulator, we're going to be using the simulated version. They have a mobile version, they have an online version, and they have on-premise version. And I like their on-premise version versus their browser version. Their browser version really is not NinjaTrader. It's another company they bought. So I like to use NinjaTrader. And the operating system is still Windows. So if I think about this, Costa, is that I have the operating system of the software I want to use is Windows. The problem, and what computer do you have, Costa?
I have a Mac.
You have a Mac. What operating system are you using on your Mac?
Is it OS X? I'm not sure.
Okay, so one of the things that we need to do next time is find out, Costa, everyone, an assignment. Is what is the operating system of your computer?
Mine's Mac OS 13.
Mac OS, and we only need to know the version, okay?
13.
So we'll have to find what is the OS of your computer. And that is going to be, and also which version. So if you have Mac OS, can you run then a Windows program? Costa, what do you think?
No.
This is my development. This is my question. And that's what we're always doing, is thinking about what is our challenges. What we want to do is run, execute software app running Windows operating system. And what are we trying to do, Costa, each time? Is we're trying to find solutions. So one solution, do you have any idea, Zachary, what one solution could be? Zachary Berman.
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, do you think you could run a Windows program on a Mac OS?
Oh yeah, you can. I think there are like certain programs like Parallels that do that on
Okay, good. So not even that, you got it already. So what is Parallels really? It's basically that you're going to get, you're going to run Windows on a Mac machine, on a Mac computer. That's one way. So we could use something like Parallels where we could simulate, in this case, having Mac do it, okay? So one way is to have Windows operating system running on a Mac, let's call it, computer. And one of the software programs is that you said we could run parallel. So you have an idea. How do you know about that, Zach?
I got it for a business analytics class.
So a business analytics, and why did they want that?
It was just easier to use Excel.
Right. So they said it. The Excel is what? Is an app, right? It's an application program. And basically it runs on Mac and it runs on Windows, but they're different versions, right? So Zach, they're different versions. Microsoft in the beginning almost ran Excel in the very beginning only on Windows. And they said, hey, there's so many Mac users, we can make money on those Mac users and have a specialized version. But since Microsoft owned it, Microsoft says, you know what, my better version, my more advanced version, I'll have it running on Windows. Why? Because Microsoft wants to make more money on their selling operating systems. They make money, Zach, on that. So when they're making Parallels, right, they're making money on their operating system, but they also want to have an idea. If people don't want that, that's a capability.
Yeah, exactly.
So one is to have run another program, something like Parallels, running to simulate that I have it on a Mac. That's one way. Another way is to find a computer that natively has Windows on it, running on it. In the School of Business, I'm going to call it SBA, in the labs on the second floor, those computers run Windows and installed is NinjaTrader. You understand that, Zachary? So you have another choice. You can have Parallels. You can download the version of Windows 8 on your laptop, or you could go to the lab in the School of Business on the second floor and run NinjaTrader on Windows. That's the second way. So this is number one. This is number two. And Alex Creighton, you have another idea what we could do?
Guess you could buy a Windows computer.
I could buy a Windows computer, right? That's another solution, right? Just buy a Windows computer, right? Have those extra, and probably you could get a Windows computer, you know, a low one, you know, a cheaper one. So that's another one. And another one is we could use another Windows computer via a browser. And that Windows computer could be in the cloud. Right? So Alex, when I told you about buying another one, we could basically say we could just use a Windows computer, not buying it, not going physically to the SBA, but using it via a browser. And what does that mean, Alex, is what? That computer resides where? On someone else's, resides in another server farm, let's say, and we gain just access to that computer. Basically, it's like the way we're getting remotely. We'll log in remotely. And we're learning that maybe the problem is, one problem with going to the SBA lab is what? If I think about it, Zachary Berman, is what? You have to physically go there. 2 o'clock in the morning, you want to do your assignment. It's not going to be open. You have to go there, right? So another way is maybe to go through this Windows computer and gain access via that browser. And for Windows, the cloud offering from Microsoft is called Azure. And they give services to use hardware, operating systems, software, applications, data analytics via the cloud. A lot of times I say via a browser. And they sell these services. This is a revenue producing version for Microsoft. And the advantage The advantage to that for Microsoft is that they can sell extra services. They can sell hardware, they can sell software, they can operating systems, they can sell even application services via a browser. Very profitable for them. Who is another competitor of the cloud? Ike, do you know who is another competitor of the cloud? Is Amazon. Have you heard about that? Amazon Web Services. Have you ever bought from Amazon anything, Ike?
Yeah, aren't they like starting to build a lot of more like servers too and like expand that kind of?
Yeah, well, I'm usually buying something, stuff from Amazon, right? That they deliver to my door, right? But Amazon has another division that they're selling services via a browser to companies. So if we started off, Ike, as basically starting our own company, we don't have any customers. We say, hey, I don't want to buy a lot of computing power because I don't know what I'm going to do. I can even grow via time, and you can almost think about it as I can rent out those hardware and software via a browser. When we grow, when we do really, if we were like a trading company, 32 gig is not enough for us. So maybe we needed to have 128, but you said, that's going to cost us. We'll rent it. It's almost like by time. We could even rent out our services via Amazon. Google, have you ever heard of Google? Ike? Of course you did, right? They also sell these, what they call cloud services, from the hardware to the operating system to the apps, through basically doing AI, doing data mining, doing data analytics. So what I'd like you all to do is next week, I'm going to start on some of this. What I'd like you to do is make sure our link that the university gave us, they're giving us a spot in Azure. They're paying for it for us to use NinjaTrader. How? Via the cloud service. You could download NinjaTrader on your own, or you could go to the lab. I'm going to use as a whole, I'm going to be using our Azure cloud service for a couple of reasons. One, we all can do it. Two, it's easy for me to do it online. And three, to introduce us to cloud services. And four, to see what are always, like I say, what are the pros and cons? What do you think right away? If I think about it, Dylan Hirsch, what do you think the cons would be for using cloud services?
Maybe that it's not like physically stored in your device.
It's not physically, so it may be what? It's almost like when we use YouTube. Is there a latency, Dylan? Will be, right?
Yeah.
There'll be a latency. Will it matter so much for us if we're kind of doing just for simulation? It wouldn't. But if we were, Dylan, really trading for real and doing high frequency trading, right? And we wanted to get in on a certain price and it took us a minute, it may be too long for us to place that order. Everybody with me? So it depends on what the application is. So I'll show you that, and then it's kind of like another tool in your toolkit. When somebody says, you'll be proud, and somebody says to you, hey, I know how to use cloud services just like I know how to do other things. We can do it on premise, meaning on the computer, or in the lab, right? They'd set that up, that you physically can go to another computer, or we can do it cloud service. And what are the advantages and disadvantages? And Google now is going with some of the Wall Street and saying, hey, we got to cut down on that latency. Because do you think Google, Dylan, would want to sell to Wall Street cloud services? Bet you. But what is a lot of times Wall Street saying to you, we can't use your cloud services for trading. We can use it for simulations, or we can use it for forecasting when time is not of that second by second is not as important. So what is Google trying to do? is basically reduce that latency. To make it as you blink your eyes, that's how fast that trade is going. Because if not, the whole idea is in that arbitrage, and that you've lost it. So it depends on the application. But if you're just doing something, let's say in Word or something, or just doing an Excel, it doesn't matter if it took a minute, does it? Or it took half a second. Has no consequence to us. So when we're doing our simulations, it really doesn't matter. We'll get the idea, but we're not going to be using real money, and we're not going to be doing real-time data tick by tick. But we'll get the same idea. What does it mean to write an algorithm? What does it mean to write a strategy? Why do algo traders starting 300 grand with little experience? Plus, if the strategy works, they get a commission. Why is that? And now what it's going to be really changing quite a bit is the coding. Even the best coders, they'll have the AIs, their system, writing the code along with it. So we'll look at source code, but what we'll do is we'll write kind of instructions in English and have it write the code for us. And we'll get an idea what it is. And if we're never, and sometimes what your job may be, Alex Wasserman, your job may be just to moderate and see if everything's working right. And then reporting, Alex, these are issues, just like we're doing this and documenting. Hey, a server is down. God, we need to have a backup servers, right? We can't do it. Or we may just say, hey, the market's going crazy. My strategy is not being applied. There's something unusual happening in the world. Get me out of the trade, and let's just not trade. Let's not use our strategy, because we know that strategy isn't going to work right now. So what I want also you to do for next time, before we meet, let me share, is I'd like you to go to web links, and you see this virtual lab. Notice it says what? It says there, Kaylee, you see that Azure, Microsoft? Click on it. I'm going to click on mine. You can click on yours. Let me open in a new window and see if it works. Everybody do that. And I get something. You get this that says MHBS Azure VDI. Justin, did you try it? Justin, David?
No, I didn't try it yet.
So go to web links and try it. Katie, did you try it?
Yeah, it's working for me.
Okay. So what do you see on your screen?
It's
Same
just
thing I see on
saying you haven't like set anything up yet, but like
right. So let me click on it. And it says, do you get this? Access local resources. Your clipboard, file transfer, printer, allow. Do you have that?
let me like reload it.
Okay.
It's still saying you haven't like set up any resources yet.
Do you have this VDI? Allow. Connecting, launching, and
No.
then enter your credentials.
No, I don't have that.
Okay. This is the Daniel, and remind me, we can even put this in the chat too.
Yeah.
Is a good assignment for everyone is to record getting in with this URL, the student VDI,
Okay.
and record it, right? With almost your screencaster. You almost can do it like with your screencaster, Katie, and we can see what is the issue, because we want to make sure that it's working for everyone.
So if people have issues, they should record it and then send it to us.
I think everybody should record.
Okay.
And then maybe we'll set up a part where it says like for an exercise, a VDI link that they can say that it's working okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what I get. And this looks like what? This is a Windows remote. Look how it says here, remote desktop window web client. Did anybody get it to work? Did you get it to
Mine
work?
works.
Huh?
Mine works.
Okay. Zachary Berman, did you try to get it to work?
Yeah, I tried to, but it didn't work. It was the
What
same.
what does it say?
It says the system administrator has not set up any resources for.
Are you using this link, Daniel? Did I post it? Maybe I'm using.
Yeah, I'm using the same link.
Did you link it? So can you do me a favor? Let's do this. Maybe even put it in, you know, it'll be interesting. Put it in the by groups, put it in the audit area, Daniel.
Okay.
Put it in Daniel in the audit area of,
I'll put the link in the chat and then I'll also put it in the audit area.
but put in it like a subdirect, you know, of
Yeah.
of everybody having that area where they can then post
hmm
for next time. Because that's going to be important. Because if
I'll make
if,
an announcement.
yeah, make it in an announcement. Perfect. You can make it in the audit area, right?
Yep.
That's the beauty. You can make it in the audit area and it can send. And send it to everyone. So Leisha, did you try it?
I am trying to pull it up right now. It's not working
Okay,
for me.
okay.
I just made the announcement in the
Okay.
audit.
So did anyone get it to work besides Daniel? So we gotta go back to the, so basically, Ike, share your screen with me.
Hold on a second. I just closed out of it. Let me
Okay,
pull it
so
back
let's
up.
see. Alex, did you try it? Great.
No, not yet.
So try it. Do you know what what you're trying? You're gonna click on that link, the first link in the web links.
I can share my screen now.
Yeah, good. Share your screen. It's good that we tried this out.
So when I click on it, it just comes up with this.
Okay, let's do this. Just at this point, go back. Go back to close that and go back to our regular web, to our regular section. Go to our regular section. Now go to web links on the left. Now click on, you see there, yeah, click on that. And looks like the system hasn't set up any resources.
I just messaged Dylan. I think they need to
Okay,
be
so
added to the allowed users.
Okay, so this is great. So do me a favor. I
Yeah.
copy, copy that screen for me. Ike of
Okay.
and then send it to me and then I'll send it to IT.
How should I send it to you?
Just you can send to my email. Just put
Okay.
put in H1 and then just put screenshot. Just send me a screenshot of what you got. That's strange. And did you try it, Alex? Creighton?
Yeah, I got the same issue, the no resources available.
Right, so we got it for the whole class. So we got to figure out what is that? Why are we getting them? And guess what? If you think about it, Alex Creighton, the School of Business through the IT of the university set that up. So see what the issues are. So even when we're going to set this up, it works for me. It worked for Daniel that we had before, but it doesn't work for everybody in the class. So before we even, isn't that better that we do a couple of weeks in advance to see it rather than we say, hey, the assignment is due to, it's morning and then everybody has to run to the lab to do it. the assignment. It's not the end of the world, but it's a way for convenience. Plus, it's a way for us to learn about it. Okay? So good. I have something to, yeah, send that. Daniel, yeah, that we can send that to Dylan that he can
Yeah, Dylan's
contact.
in here now.
Oh, Dylan.
Yeah, I'm back.
So, Ike, you want to share your screen?
Let me pull it back up.
Yeah, pull it back. Dylan, I want you to see this. That the students were trying to try to do the Azure Connect, and this is what they get.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I had a problem with it on
Oh,
Safari.
maybe, you know what? It's Safari.
Yeah.
Try using it on Chrome.
I wasn't able to do it on Safari, but only on Chrome. So
Yeah, so everybody do this. One
I
little
did it.
thing.
I did it on Chrome. It didn't work.
It didn't work either. Show
Wow.
me yours, Alex. Do it on Chrome. Share them the screen.
All right, 1 second.
Because that was one.
Can you see it? I can try
Yeah.
it again, but
Privacy management. Try to do it. Okay.
yeah.
Right. It's the same thing for everyone. Okay. So we need to work on that, Dylan, and contact IT before we do. Okay, guys, let me do attendance. Always, I'm happy when there's issues that we can deal with, right? This is called the BTE issues class that we can deal with it. Anything else I need on the chat? Alex Wasserman, anything else I need to deal with before we do?
Nope, all good.
Thank you, Alex, for moderating today, and also Daniel. And you see here, that's mine right there. And then if I wanted to see I'm in another Windows, I can just power, you know, and I can just disconnect. You see this where it ends my connection. I can end my connection. You can see that. Okay, so let's take attendance. This is good to know. And stay with me if you have questions. And Dylan, Melnick, stay with me too, right? So we can see here, start checking. 3049. 3049.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Daniel, what operating system are you using?
Linux, but that shouldn't affect it.
I know, but I'm just thinking, you know what I mean? Why is yours working? And mine's
I
working.
have no idea. I'm using Firefox, maybe, but I doubt it. It seemed to be that they just didn't add them, but they added me for some reason.
But they had it. And Gus, did you try it? Did it work for you, Gus? I don't think it worked for anybody, did it? Yeah, out of resources. So we'll see what it is. And you know what? Maybe we can, it's now 4:45, we can even have them come in on Monday. You know, tell them that's the thing, and then they can see it through our students, because you know, they work till, Dylan, they work till 5, usually down there, but send them, can you be so kind and send them an email?
yeah, I can do that. It's to the same guy that was emailing us before.
Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah, Matthew, and I think there were, if there's in that list there, there's also their bosses, Stephen and Matthew and the other ones. That's important. You know, the head of them, and saying that these are issues that were, good thing that I checked it. You know what I mean? I thought that would be your, see, Daniel, we think that was going to be the easy part, right?
I know.
And then when they assign it, who knows? I don't know what they did in the background.
So every time you log out of it, it shuts down, right?
It shuts down in another 15 minutes. It's more proper to shut down
Yeah.
properly. But
And
yeah,
it gives us 2 cores, 16 gigs, right?
yeah. It's good enough for the assignment.
Oh,
It
4
wouldn't be-
V cores.
Right. It wouldn't be enough
Yeah, it's not very much, but
No,
14
but
gigs
it's
RAM.
it's
Okay.
good enough for our simulation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just stop recording. So I have then here